So we are recording, and I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen out. There we go. I'll probably want to bring up this. Okay, because that's the template there. Just making sure I have everything up so we don't have to wait for stuff to load. Okay, all right. It looks like it's going to be us today, which is fantastic because I'll put this out for everybody else to view when they are able. Do you have any specific questions you want answered right up front?
Yeah, unfortunately, this week I'm terribly confused. I'll start off with the research project submit. That is just putting together all the pieces we've done, such as the body and the bibliography, and submitting that.
Yes. And so you're putting it together as a one solid paper, and you can use this template that's in the announcements right here to kind of use these as headings if you like. Don't have to, but you absolutely can.
Okay, so everything I've submitted, I just pull it all out, put it together as one document, and then resubmit.
Well, that one's a yes and a no, because it's a yes as far as like your methodology and things like that is yes. But the annotated bibliography, you don't want to just copy and paste that into the document. You want to write it out in more of an essay form. That's the only big difference there. So here, you can, in your topic, give a little background. That's where you explain why you're doing your research, and you do your literature advancement. And in there, you want to talk about the literature review that you did within the annotated bibliographies, and have that in there. So it's not just going to be a copy and paste of your annotated bibliography. So you're just going to say, according to, so and so and so and so, when people are doing X, whatever, and then you say, and from this research, I hope to find. So you just expand your ideas using what you found in the literature review.
Isn't this the document and the template that we used last week?
This is the whole document. See, this one last week, all you did was the method part.
Oh, I went ahead and did the whole document.
Oh, you did? That's a lot of document. That's a lot of document.
That's why I'm confused.
Okay, well, at least it makes sense that you're confused. At least it makes sense, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the big piece where most people have an issue is with the analysis piece. And this is just where you want to talk about expected outcomes and how you're going to analyze it. So you gave us the procedures. So then you just talk about, okay, I expect to see, and you're writing kind of in the future tense at this point. And you would do this for a normal dissertation or IRB review because they want to see what you believe you're going to get in. And then you're going to do the research, not in our class, but then you will do the research in life, and then you would write it in the past tense with what you actually found. So this piece is always going to change, but you always have to write it in order to get that approval. So that's why we're doing it in the proposal section. Does that make sense? Because sometimes, okay. Yeah, because they're not going to give you're not going to get your study approved unless they know what you think you're going to get, what your end goal is. So that's why we write it up that way. And then in the discussion, you're going to interpret what you think you're going to get, and then state the expectations of what you'll find. So in other words, this is where you get to go off script a little bit, as far as you don't need a ton of references in this part, because you're going to talk about your thoughts. You still want to support it here and there with documentation, but it's not as rigorous as it would be in the literature advancement piece or things like that.
Okay.
because that's where you're giving your interpretation, your evaluation.
Okay. Yeah, so where I messed up is I just basically did it all and submitted it last week.
Well, what I'll
Well,
do then is I'll give you feedback on the whole thing, and then tell you where to change stuff. Yeah,
that will help a lot. Okay, I'll wait for that.
yeah, because I
And
should be
then,
getting all the feedback by Thursday. I'm hoping. That's a lot of papers
okay.
to read and give feedback to, so it's taking
Yeah,
all
it
that
is.
time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
perfect. That will help me greatly because I was confused, but now I see why I confused myself.
Yeah,
And then,
yeah. If you get just a little bit ahead, it gets real gray. You know.
it got real quick. Our next one was to submit the research evaluation.
So, I'm sorry, that wasn't clear. Can you say it again?
Our next assignment was to submit research evaluation.
Ah, so that's going to be this coming Monday. You're just going to resubmit. Since you wrote it already, I'll give you feedback on what to change. And then you're just going to resubmit that, but it's the whole paper that's due.
Okay. Let
And
me open the because I'm.
so are you talking about week 7 or?
Let me see what I've done wrong. So that was the whole paper. That was the part 8 peer evaluation. That is due this week also.
The peer evaluation is going to be, where do
It
we
shows up
go
on
here?
the
Well, I keep clicking the wrong week here, sorry. You're going to post that next week, week 7, because we're in week 6, right? I hope I'm not
right.
confused. That'd be horrible. That'd be terrible. Oh, we lost a week, people. We gotta go. No, no. Next week you're gonna post it. So by when it says by Monday of week 8, you want your peer review uh, completed because you want people to be able to look at it. So you're going to post in week 7 what you've done, and then everybody. Yeah, so it would just be an attachment. Hi, this is Debbie. Here's my research, and an attachment. And
Okay, because someone posted just the bibliography already, and I thought, oops. Okay.
yeah, and then make sure that you look through this document. If nobody saw where I clicked that right here in week 7, because that tells you exactly what to look at. I know you've read this before, but it'll be a good reference to do it again, especially the peer review piece, since now you're actually doing a peer review.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so you're actually in very good shape. Everybody in our class is in a really good position right now because we've just taken it step by step. And I would imagine that you're looking at research a little bit different than when we started, because when we started, it probably looked a bit overwhelming. But as we kind of just broke it down step by step, I hope that you see it as something that, oh yeah, this is doable. That's my hope.
Right.
Everybody. Yeah.
It came together real good for me. I appreciated it being that way.
Yeah, you're welcome. Because research isn't something that's reserved for a specific group of scholars. It's something that we can all do because we are all scholars. The only reason why it used to be that scholar club is because they wanted to keep the rest of us out. And we're not
Well,
going
they've
to.
done a good job for a while.
Yeah, people made it a much more difficult than what it is because they wanted all of us to think that they were brilliant. But it's just getting down to the nitty gritty, finding out what is actually happening in that, and everybody's gone through the whole process for that. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, this has been great. It really has changed my idea of research. And we talked about that in the discussion. It's like Wikipedia used to be, don't ever look at that, don't ever use that. Well, it's just somebody's research.
Yeah, and people will, the good way to use Wikipedia is to go there to get some basic info and then check it, because you never want to use that as a primary source, because people will flip out. so you go in, you grab your info, and what I do is that's a place where you can go and grab a lot of references.
Yeah, I think it's a good launching pad.
Yeah. So don't be afraid of stuff like that. But if you use it in an academic way, they won't accept it. But it's a great place to go gather data. Just gather the data and see, because you get perspective there. Hey, Sandra, welcome. Glad you're here. We just went over the final project. It's going to be due on Monday. That's this whole piece. And the only big difference is, oh, she may not be able to hear me. Oh, how about, hey Debbie, let's do something interesting. When Sandra gets back, how about you explain the piece about the annotated bibliography, so she can get a better perspective than just mine. What do you think? You up for it?
I'll give it a try.
I'm putting you on the spot. Okay.
Hopefully she comes back.
Yeah, she's here. Hey Sandra, can you hear us okay?
I'm so sorry. I was so in my assignment that I forgot the time.
Well, I am glad you're here. Never a problem. The only thing that's going to be really different from what you've already done is the annotated bibliography is going to become your literature review. So I'm going to let Debbie explain that to make sure, because that's going to check and make sure that I explained it right the first time too. So now everybody watching the video will get another perspective as well. So that is always helpful. So take it away, Debbie.
Okay, so the way I understand it is we're going to now go to our bibliography, and we're going to insert it as insight text when we quote something. So we're going to talk about, I did my research based on the color red because J. Teal in their research, such and such quote, did this. And then I'm going to come back after that quote and talk a little bit more how that influenced my research. And then as I go, I'll pull another piece from my bibliography and do the same thing. And I'm not quite sure if we're required to use all 10 of our of our site, or if we can pick and choose.
Pick and choose. First off, that was a good explanation. Thank you for that. That was good. And you do not have to use all 10 of your sources. Now, in the final document, when you get to your reference section, oh, I didn't put a reference. Remember to put your reference page on there. Don't put references that are not in your document. That's the only difference.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So if you choose to use 5, there should be 5 references in the document, not 10. And I'm not going to deduct anything because you removed a few references, because sometimes that's how the process works. So we continually shave things down, because as we want to, when we first start, we start with a whole bunch of stuff, and then we just slowly just shave it down to that one excellent nugget of information that we want. So we have to focus what we're doing as well with our literature review. So that's just a natural part of the process.
Perfect. Did that make sense, Sandra, the way I explained it?
No, I think I didn't get the point yet. I'm so sorry.
Oh, let me preface it a little bit better, because I just you just kind of jumped in there. Sorry. The difference between this document, you're going to take what you learned from your annotated bibliography and put it in this document as a literature review. What you're not going to do is just copy and paste the annotated bibliography in there. Sometimes people think that's what we're supposed to do. So I want to stop anyone from doing that before they do it and do it how Debbie said she. What was your example, Debbie? Can you state your example again? I thought that was pretty good. So
The example is, I'm going to talk about the fact that I'm doing my research on paper color and testing. And I'm basing my research on a study that was done by ELTO on color paper and test results. So I'm going to put an insight quotation on something out of my bibliography into my document here, and then continue to talk about how it affected my research.
yeah. That's a good example. So the annotated bibliography is becoming more of an in essay form where you have your ideas being supported by the literature. So you can see your ideas and the support, your ideas and the support. That means it's a solid project that you're putting together, because we always want to build upon what's already done.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Standing on the proverbial shoulders of giants, as they say.
Okay.
So as far as, since you've gone through this as well, Sandra, a lot of times research can look overwhelming when we start in week one. But now that we've walked through the vast majority of the process, I hope you're able to see that if you just take it one step at a time, it's not something that's insurmountable. It's something that you can absolutely do if you want to, if you choose to,
Okay.
And do you have any specific questions to ask?
No. So if I understand it right, I put my idea together and just, like Debbie said, put some quotation in that to explain, and like doing an essay, like you said, doing an
Yes.
essay, just put in their citation from my bibliography.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, that's good. Okay.
Yeah, that is right on target. And then I'm going to restate this one more time because I think it's important, is when we get to the analysis and specifically our discussion right here, where we interpret and evaluate, you're writing all that in the future tense of what you believe is going to happen, because we don't know yet. But it's important to write that up, because you're never going to get approval for anything if you don't at least have an idea of what you think the outcome is. If you're just looking for chaos, nothing ever is true chaos. So there's always an expected outcome. Now, whether that expected outcome happens or not, different story. That's where the different outcomes or the chaos can kick in. But in order to get something approved, like we've gone through the IRB forms and all that, you have to know what you expect to see. And that's where this interpretation and this evaluation comes in. So you're going to interpret the data that you think you're going to get. Does that make sense for everybody? So I know you don't have the actual data, but you have an idea of what's going to happen. So now you're going to interpret that idea and evaluate.
Okay. I have one thing. I'm sorry, Debbie.
No, I was just agreeing with him. It made sense.
Okay.
When I do that paper, I use what we got from you, what I see now on the screen, and all the things like the method, materials, I leave that in there so that I have, how should I say, that I have that format how you made it. I leave like materials, and then I write what I have on materials, procedure, I write that. So these words can stay in the paper, right?
Yes, and these are all done with APA heading style. So these are all headings, like obviously you're not going to leave this part in, but
yes,
absolutely leave all the headings in. Do you have to? No, Do you want to? Yes. Because I mean, think about it. So we've gone through this, and I said, write it so I can understand it. Think of me like I'm a third grader, right? Well, if you, that's why APA uses a lot of headings, because it focuses the information and the reader can go to where they need to go. It helps people digest the paper. So you want those headings on there. Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Do you have to? No. Is it harder to grade? Yes. And what happens when it's harder to grade? The grade goes down because you're spending too much time trying to figure stuff out. And I don't say that in a mean way. That's just, that's just reality. When things are harder to do, the natural tendency is to find the errors, if you will, or probably even invent them. I don't know, but it just makes life a lot simpler for anyone reading your paper. Was I just a terrible person with that explanation?
No. I looked if I have other questions.
Okay.
Okay. It says with the design, how will you run the study? So I explain again what I do. How is it from the start, like mine a survey from how I promoted to the getting the results, the whole thing?
Yes, and you don't. It's not the procedure of step one. I'm going to give out the informed consent. Step two, I'm going to do this. The design. This is where you're actually going to use some of your bibliography, and you're going to say, okay, I chose to utilize this test because Harrison and Jones from Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones. So found that, and then that's telling us that your design is based on previous evidence. That's what I'm trying to say. So you're going to be supporting what you do right there as well.
Okay.
No, I have a.
Anything else, Sandra?
Joy.
I think I will be fine.
And if anything doesn't make sense, it might make sense now, but when you look at it, at 2:00 in the morning, it may not make sense. Feel free to send me an email and I'll answer it when I wake up in the morning.
Oh, okay, no problem.
Debbie, how about yourself? Any other questions?
No, I think I've got it. I appreciate you doing this. Thank you very much.
You are welcome. I enjoy these. It brings the humanity back to everything.
Well,
Yes,
I think blending it, this blended learning makes such a big difference because I was really getting bored with just online that's becoming independent study.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you are the first professor that is doing these Zooms, and I so appreciate that because I can ask questions and know what I'm doing. And thank you very much. I really.
Oh, you're welcome, and I appreciate you coming to these, both of you, and anybody else who's not able to make it but is getting something out of the session, out of the recordings. That's the goal, because it's weird how it does make a difference when you hear somebody or see somebody. They can say the exact same thing as the written direction, but it just seems to make sense. So, I've done that many times myself. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. And I hope you're getting a lot from the class as well. I hope the discussions and everything are insightful as well. So I do appreciate that. Then if that's it, let's go ahead and call it a day and have lunch. What do you think?
Yes, sir.
All right. You have a good day.
Somebody's growling. I don't want to get that on recording. Take care. Have a wonderful day.
Okay, then.
You guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.